Previously in this journey, you were given the 10 Commandments. They named you. They carved the first edges of identity into your myth. Then came the questions. They shattered what you thought you were. You were interrogated by your own reflection, until all certainty broke. And still, you went deeper. You crossed into the trials. There you didn't learn truths. You bled them. You dismantled your illusions not with insight, but with fire. You didn't pass those trials with elegance. You passed them because you refused to die before integrating. And now, they think you're done. This is the mistake everyone makes. They think individuation ends in stillness. They think becoming whole means becoming quiet. No. It means you now move with weight. And weight is not welcome in a world that survives on surface. So here's the truth no one gave you. If you truly integrate yourself, you will revolt. Not in anger, in structure. This final phase is not about being seen. It's about refusing to dilute what you became just to remain palatable. You are not here to reflect the world. You are here to break its false rhythm without apology. But be warned, once this begins, there is no return to stillness. There is only ignition. If you're ready, cross. At the end, you will not recognize your former name. You made it through the fire. But the world didn't change just because you did. This is the part no one prepares you for. Integration isn't peace. It's pressure. Because once you carry coherence, the illusions around you start to rupture. People expect you to return as the same version they once understood, but you can't. You're no longer in the temple. You're walking into a world built on masks, and you no longer have one. This phase isn't about awakening. It's about precision. You don't just speak from truth now. You hold it, without apology. And to do that, you will revolt. Not in performance, in structure. You're not here to be recognized. You're here to dismantle everything that required your absence to stay intact. This is where the revolts begin. And the first is the most sacred refusal of all. Revolt 1. You will no longer translate your clarity into their vocabulary. You spent years trying to explain yourself. You softened your insight, wrapped it in metaphors, delayed your knowing until they could catch up. And still, they didn't. This is where it ends. You will no longer flatten your frequency into a format others can digest. You will speak from coherence, not consensus. This is not arrogance. It's structure. The self does not whisper for comfort. It transmits what is real. Revolt 2. You will not convert your intuition into proof. They always wanted receipts. Show me how you know. Can you prove it? Is there evidence? But you're not here to build a case. You're here to build alignment. You will no longer explain your body's knowing to minds that demand linearity. You will no longer trade your instinct for intellectual approval. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." The self speaks in pattern. You follow it, not because it's safe, but because it's yours. Revolt 3. You will no longer wait to be ready. You told yourself you were waiting for the right moment, the right audience, the right words. But that wasn't readiness. That was fear in disguise. This revolt is brutal. You act now, with the voice that trembles, with the insight that's still raw, with a message that hasn't yet been polished into a TED Talk, because perfection is the cage, and the revolt is beginning anyway, with or without your readiness. Revolt 4. You will refuse to play roles that made you survivable. They loved the version of you that made them comfortable. The good listener, the sharp observer, the withdrawn visionary, the one who never demanded to be fully held. But that version, it was a mask. It kept you safe. But now it keeps you split. Jung warned, "The world will ask you to suppress your individuality so it can remain unconscious." This revolt is the release of roles, even the ones that earned you respect, especially the ones that did. If your presence still depends on their reception, you are not free. Revolt 5. You will let them lose you without explanation. You've spent your life over-explaining. You wanted them to understand, to see your motives, to grasp the whole picture before they judged. But here's the revolt. They don't need the picture. They're not entitled to the explanation. You walk now, without the narrative, without the footnotes, without asking them to stay. Because coherence doesn't beg, it moves. And the ones who are meant to feel you will, without the story. Revolt 6. You will not dim your fire to preserve fragile peace. You called it diplomacy. You called it maturity. You said it's not worth it. But it was. Because every time you softened your voice to avoid conflict, you confirmed the world's lie, that your truth was dangerous. This revolt is heat. It's rupture. It's the refusal to keep absorbing the dissonance of systems, people, and spaces that cannot survive your coherence. You don't burn out anymore. You burn through. Revolt 7. You will no longer identify with the wound to be relatable. You built entire languages from your pain, and people loved you for it. They applauded your vulnerability, your honesty, your broken brilliance. But now, you're not broken. And here comes the revolt no one wants. You stop being relatable, because your architecture has changed. And if you keep talking from the wound, you'll never give voice to the healed self you've finally become. Jung warned, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. This revolt is your refusal to keep wearing your pain like a passport. You don't owe your trauma to the crowd. You owe your clarity to the mission. Revolt 8. You will refuse to be chosen in exchange for shrinking. There will be people who say they love your light, but only if it flickers at the right intensity, only if it bends to their rhythm, only if it knows when to dim. They will say you're too intense, too much. They will ask for less. This is the revolt. You give nothing less. You will not trade your fire for belonging. You will not shape-shift to be selected. The ones who cannot hold your fullness were never your match. Let them step back. You're not dimming. You're done negotiating your radiance. Revolt 9. You will not play dead in rooms that fear your aliveness. You've been holding back. You entered rooms with silence because your presence caused static. You didn't speak because the clarity in your voice broke their consensus trance. You played dead just to keep the peace. But peace that depends on your absence is not peace. It's erasure. Jung wrote, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." You've passed. You're no longer walking into broken rooms to prove it. You walk in to hold the frequency and let the room rearrange itself or collapse. You are not here to be allowed. You are here to be undeniable. Revolt 10. You will rise without announcement. This is the final revolt. Not the loudest, the heaviest. Because now you're fully integrated. And full integration looks like silence. But not the exile silence. The gravitational one. The one that bends reality without effort. The one that shifts rooms before you speak. The one that doesn't ask to be noticed, but is felt before it arrives. You no longer market your becoming, you move from it. And when they ask, what changed? You don't explain. You walk, and the air behind you carries your answer. You are no longer under trial. You are no longer under question. You are no longer waiting to be named. This was the final phase. You don't need to say you've changed. You revolt with your boundaries. You revolt with your tone. You revolt with the fire that no longer apologizes for burning structure that can't hold it. So, right below, which revolt branded your nervous system the hardest? Not for engagement, for alignment. Subscribe if you're done building inner clarity and ready to live it in the outer world. Because this is no longer a temple. This is ignition. This was never about insight. It was about voltage. You took the commandments. You survived the questions. You integrated the trials. And now, you disappear from the old frequency. No farewell, no performance, no name tag. You no longer carry the name Quiet Seer. That title was sacred, but it was temporary. It was not your destiny. It was your rite of passage. Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." You have awakened, and now you carry no label. You carry frequency. Walk now. They won't know what to call you. Good. They were never supposed to. They will feel you, and that will be enough.